Don't miss Macy's Super Saturday sale with 50 to 75% savings store-wide. Plus,
greetings, family, and welcome to the Us Lifting Us Economic Development Cooperative presentation and training. I'm Brother DJ, along with Baba Hekima Kenyama. Greetings, Baba. How you doing?
I'm doing great, brother. Good to hear your voice again on a Thursday evening call.
Yes, sir. Likewise, and definitely likewise to you as well. Good to hear your voice, and good to have the family on as well. Those of you who are already calling in to the switchboard, and also those of you who are listening in online via Motherland Media Network all over the world. We want to take the time out to first off tell you thank you for taking the time out of your schedule, out of your day, regardless of where you may be in the country and around the world, to listen to this 2-hour broadcast, family. We don't take it lightly, and whenever we have an opportunity to come before our people and discuss things, we want to make sure we do it professionally with the level of energy and enthusiasm that's warranted for this serious of a discussion, and we know tonight will be in alignment with that. This is a 2-hour broadcast. And this is a call that we do every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time in an effort to really familiarize prospective Us Lifting Us members with our brand of cooperative economics, or what we affectionately refer to as family-centered economics. And again, this is a 2-hour broadcast intended to be interactive, so at any time you may have a question or feel you want to be a part of the conversation. Simply push the number 1 on your phone, push the number 1 on your keypad, and we'll open up your line to allow you an opportunity to ask a question or give a comment. Again, we definitely encourage you to not only listen, but to ask those questions. And the tougher the questions, the more challenging the question, the better. Not only does the call go, but our organization. We only do what we do so that we may build a world-class organization that has the global reach, impact, and scale that is Us Lifting Us Economic Development Cooperative. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Baba Hekima, before we get started with today's discussion?
Yeah, 2 short points. I want to encourage everyone who's on the call for the first time, or even if you're not on the call for the first time, but if you have not visited our website, we want to encourage you to do so. And in particular, view from our homepage the top video. It's a 17-minute video that gives a good overview of Us Lifting Us. The other point is that this call in the first hour is really for new people. And we generally cover some of the same territory each week because for that brother or sister who's been referred to ULU and who comes here for the first time, we want to give to that person a good overview and essence of what ULU is all about. So it's intended, at least the first hour, for new people, for people who are visiting this call for the first time. That would be all I would have to share, Brother DJ.
Thank you, Baba Hekima. And we hope that for those of you who are on for the first time, whether you refer to the call by your a current ULU member, a family member, friend, co-worker, comrade, or what have you, we hope that, we not only spark your interest, but that it encourages you to take out a membership today. And we'll go into some detail on what that process is for becoming a member. And again, we hope that you will take the time to not only listen, but be inspired by the information, so much so that you actually take action and become a part of the ULU network by becoming a formal member of the business. And so with that being said, Baba Hekima, we're going to go ahead and get started with our discussion. Of course, there's a lot in the mainstream news this week, but of course we always focus in and hammer down on topics that are pertinent to African life, whether it's in America or anywhere else in the diaspora, we focus the conversation in a way that really not only challenges us to look within ourselves, but to see that the solutions are also within us. And so with that being said, Baba Ekima, kind of give us some of the reasons why this particular conversation, this economic conversation, this black economic conversation is important at this particular time.
Yes, thank you, brother. Of course, as most of us know, change is about all over the planet. There are just simply upheavals, in particular economic upheavals everywhere. And there's a common effort to bring about new systems, new ways, new paradigms for dealing with the economics of communities and persons. And that, of course, is the case in our community. And it's gotten to the place where no conference, no seminar, no gathering of our people is absent a focused discussion about economics, about economic empowerment. And part of what's happening in that discussion is a search for new ways of exchange, of doing commerce in our community. And that's in other communities as well, but also in our community. So ULU comes out of a broad discussion, a yearning, a desire, a need for a new way of doing business, a new way of commerce, one that allows our communities to be enriched as opposed to being impoverished, as has been the case. We know that tremendous resources flow through our communities and through the hands of the individuals and the individual businesses and institutions in our community. But we haven't developed models of commerce and economic activity that would allow these resources to stay in our community long enough to empower us. Most of us are aware of, and I've never thought about this before, so, sometimes on this call, certain things just come to you. But, very often you have a shower and tons of water come down, and the shower lasts a very short time, and then the sun comes back out, and before you know it, the plants really haven't been watered. The ground is dry again because essentially all the water ran into the streams and tributaries and back to the rivers and the oceans. But a slow rain, of course, of long duration, gives a chance for things to be saturated and for there to be more moisture, more nutrients from the soil and whatever. And so in our community and in our thrust for economic empowerment, whether we give voice to it or not, we really are looking for a way that's different than what we've done in the past that gives the predictable results that we talk about in terms of empowering our community. So ULU comes about as a result of a general discussion, but also a focused discussion here in our community. Brother DJ, you of course were a part of that, starting in 2011, a very focused discussion about bringing about a new model. And so ULU is the result of that exploration, that study, that inquiry, answering the call to a real need to develop a new way of doing business, a new way of doing commerce that didn't leave us dry. Even in the midst of all the potential substance that flow through our fingers. And so a good part of the discussion this evening obviously is going to be around a more definitive discussion of that particular model. But overall, ULU comes about, and our brand of cooperative economics, as you indicated, family-centered economics, comes about as a answer to the call. And it's a historical call. It's not just a call for today, but to the call for us to organize our activities, our economic activities, in such a way that it naturally maintained and sustained a greater amount of that resource in our community so that we could be, and in fact are, empowered.
Shay, and thank you for that very, very powerful introduction as well as explanation of how we got started. Give us a call, family, at 319-527-6202. Again, that's 319-527-6202. And push the number 1 on your phone whenever you may have a question or want to give a comment at any time during our conversation. And so, again, Baba Kima, as you mentioned, during what I guess we can refer to now as the good old days or the early days of ULU, when we first initially sat at the table and began to think through and talk through this process, we know that we were not exactly sure what we were going to create in terms of a cooperative, but we knew that we needed to create something very, very powerful. Give us a glimpse of the level of thinking, of scope, scale, and vision that went into, what eventually became this particular process that we talk about every week and that we demonstrate in our presentation, that's designed to really change the paradigm of Africans all over the world economically.
Yes. What we knew and what we know is that there's no scarcity of brothers and sisters who really want us to be empowered. And a good many of these brothers and sisters are rich with resources, with skills, with talents, with energy, with finances. And so, when we look out at the resource-rich environment that we exist in, so we knew that we wanted to come up with a formula, a process, an institution that could accommodate thousands, tens of thousands, and millions of brothers and sisters, but also institutions as well, to join forces in a economic structure that would, alongside our other businesses and other institutions, could form the foundation, the base of a new economy. And so the scope from day one was huge. We reflected on the efforts of the UNIACL under the leadership of Marcus Garvey, and got inspiration from the fact that his vision was to build a foundation that consisted of millions of individuals and thousands of institutions, and looked globally and looked at us as a global people and questioned why we weren't at the pinnacle or the apex of civilization building. And so, again, we drew inspiration from that, but we also looked at current day models of cooperative economics in Italy, in Spain, in Canada, in the UK, in Argentina, where people were using different models, group ownership models, cooperative models, mutual ownership models, to reformat and build different relationships and dictate different outcomes for people. In particular, of course, we drew the greatest inspiration and the greatest somewhat parallel. It's a good bit different, but there's some similarities from the cooperative experiment in Spain, in an area of Spain called the Basque region. And so we had the advantage of being consulted by individuals who had actually gone to Spain to study that particular experiment. And I guess we shouldn't call it an experiment because it's far beyond an experiment. It's a success story. Started in 1956 and currently doing multiple in excess of $15 to $20 billion a year in gross revenue. So the scope was big, but we knew there's a saying that the higher you want to build a skyscraper, the broader the base has to be. So we knew that we had to create a base that was firm, that could accommodate large numbers, that could accommodate us being able to manage the large numbers. And so most of our time from our official launch, I would say that that's in June of 2013 with the creation of the limited liability company, most of our energy has been directed at building the infrastructure, building the platform, looking at process and systems so that we could accommodate numbers that would naturally come to you when people trusted what you were doing, they understood what you were doing. And so the scope, just as a reference, we have 3 objectives in our, when brothers and sisters review the 17-minute video on our website that covers our basic plan, there's a section where we talk about 3 stages. The third stage points to a target that sees ULU successful in capturing and redirecting 1/2 of 1% of the more than $1 trillion that flows through our fingers. I really want to repeat that. One of our goals, and we're talking about 10, 15, 20 years out, or maybe even faster, but us capturing and redirecting a minimum of 1/2 of 1% of the more than $1 trillion that flows through our fingers. Success at that level would put more than $5 billion a year in gross revenue within the business dealings controlled and operated by ULU. A secondary goal within that larger goal is to have at least a 1% success rate in terms of profitability. If we were able to realize 1% profit on $5 billion a year after all expenses, including charity, we would be able to return $50 million a year to our members in the form of a direct monetary return. So when we talk about scope, even though we didn't have many resources and we didn't have many numbers, but we knew that if we didn't build our bucket big enough, And even if it got full, we could still find ourselves thirsty. And so we wanted to build a big reservoir. And so instantly we began not only to think, but to build in relationship to our desire to build a platform that could handle millions of people and multiple billions of dollars in gross revenue. So that speaks to the scope, and it also speaks to our understanding of how necessary it was and is, and we're still building, to build the infrastructure, to build the platform. And a lot of times we're very eager to start out and, to make a splash and hit a home run, so to speak. And we have that same urge, but we also have the calm knowledge that that foundation has to be built. But that speaks to the scope of, and that may not have covered exactly what you were asking.
No, you covered it. You covered it. Now we just add in terms of the follow-up questions for those brothers and sisters who, may not fully understand why an economic formation like this has to be built. They may be gainfully employed, may be working in corporate America, and things are going relatively well for them. And then, you got these folks that then got together and formed an economic cooperative called Us Lifting Us, that's saying that they're coming to challenge the current paradigm of economic thought. For those who, are doing relatively well, what do you say to them, Baba Hekima, who, things may be lining up and resources really aren't an issue? Why should they consider, joining Us Lifting Us as well?
Well, most of us, regardless of how well we're doing, we really want the best for our people, the best for our group. And even if we're doing well, we're very often minimized, discriminated against, despised, spit upon. And so we know what it's like, even when from a monetary standpoint or a title, Dr. So-and-so and so, that very, very often at the end of the day you steal the N-word. And so most of us want our people to fare better. And, of course, we have relatives, we have children, grandchildren, whatever, and even though I may be doing well, people in my family may not be. So the other thing is that most of us value multiple income streams. And so ULU is a way for people who are doing well to contribute to the overall good of the community, but also position themselves for a return on the contributions that they, I'll say, invest within the people and in the process. And so I think most of us could value each of us or many of us contributing to a common pool while we're doing what we have to do for ourselves. While I may have a business that's doing well, it makes sense that if there is a common fund or common pool that I could also invest in that empowered my community, that strengthened my community, and created a different cultural dynamic for my community, then it's a win-win situation. The fact that my community is doing well, it even bolsters my opportunity to do well. So there is the value of putting your eggs in more than one basket. And the paradigm that ULU is talking about is adding to what already is existing. We're not asking people not to own businesses, not to build business associations, not to build chambers of commerce, not to do whatever we're doing. We're just simply saying that it also makes sense to add a mutual aid society, a cooperative venture that has the potential to be at a accelerated growth spurt or level, add it to the mix so that the community overall is better off. So it's not a matter of either or, it's a matter of both hands.
Thank you for that. And we're going to kind of pick up the pace a little bit, because as I'm listening, I'm sensing a lot that we have to cover as we continue to really drill down so that we can paint a clear picture, for everyone who may be listening in for the first time, and even those who may be veterans to the call. I think this particular conversation, we're going to hit on some points that maybe we've hit on, but it's been a while. So when we talk about that more than $1 trillion, getting back to those who may be doing relatively well and, like you said, want to see the group do better, when we discuss the more than $1 trillion that currently flows through our hands every year, what is ULU really created to do with that vast economic resource?
Yeah, what we are building is a portfolio of hundreds and eventually thousands of individual co-op businesses that each right. one of them captures a little of the resources that typically flow through our fingers. And then what it does with those resources is create jobs, provide needed goods and services to the community, and it seeks to run effectively such that it generates a surplus or profit, and then it contributes part of those profits to back to a pool, a common reservoir, so that we can build more businesses, create more jobs, strengthen communities that we haven't in the past. So what ULU envisions, Brother DJ, you're in the air conditioning and refrigeration business, and some brothers and sisters don't know that. But I took a course in air conditioning and refrigeration at one point, and it talked about the process of air conditioning being like a sponge. If you can, in an area where you have a wet area, you take a sponge and you soak up the water, and then you take it to another area, and then you squeeze it out. And that's essentially what air conditioning systems do. They suck up heat in one environment, and then they squeeze it out in another environment. So what we are doing with ULU is we are taking an institution, a small co-op business, a medium-sized co-op business, or a large co-op business, and then we're putting it in the commercial environment, and we are absorbing resources. And then, and in the process, we're squeezing out some of those resources into a common pool that doesn't belong to me, that doesn't belong to you, that belongs to the membership base of ULU on behalf of our whole community. So you begin to have businesses that if you did business with them on a day-to-day basis, they wouldn't look like that much different from any other businesses in the community. They're just doing business. But in terms of what happens with the profits, unlike traditional businesses where the owners grab the profits, build mansions, do things based on their own criteria, these businesses would be scripted in such a way that they are forced, because of the way they're managed and run, to take their resources and squeeze out a portion of that into a common pool that's for the purpose of empowering us all, not only locally, but globally. And so we envision a sector of the economic activity of our communities globally being dedicated for a group purpose, as opposed to what happens now is that almost all of our institutions are dedicated to a personal or a limited purpose as it relates to the benefit of the owner or small groups of owners. So what we're doing is building a mechanism by which and through which we can move resources from one environment and place them in another environment and control the activities of those resources and know that it empowers us. Not because we know it because we put it into a system that we manage and control.
Yes, and just as a follow-up, family, again, if you have any questions in regards to the conversation at this point, you can give us a call at 319-527-6202 and push the number 1 on your phone, push the number 1 on your keypad, and we'll open up your line to allow you an opportunity to ask a question or give a comment. And so with that being said, Baba Hekima, we know that cooperatives are not anything new. Maybe the term is, but we've been, doing business under cooperative formations for a long time. And just not only give us a quick overview of the history of co-op, so to speak, but what makes ULU unique within the cooperative family, so to speak, because that really, in all estimation, it has a lot to do with how the power is derived in this particular formation. Give us a glimpse of that.
ULU is a co-op on steroids, so to speak. It's a cooperative, but unlike most cooperatives have a very specific and limited intent or reason to be. A farmers cooperative may be where different farmers come together and they buy machinery together and they rotate the use of it. It may be a grain elevator that they own together. It may be any number of things that they own together. A food co-op of persons who come together and purchase food together so that they would have wholesome food to eat. A credit union, of course, is a co-op, but most of them are relatively small and meet a very specific, limited use that almost never involves empowerment. There's one co-op that differs a little from that speaks to empowerment, and that's what's generally called economic development cooperatives, and that's part of our name as well. And most of these, there's, for any of us who have traveled Highway 65 between Chicago and Nashville, Tennessee, if you were in Atlanta and you were going up to Chicago, in Indiana you'd pass through a huge field of wind turbines, probably for 10 or 15 miles. You're just seeing them all along the highway. And some of the rural cooperatives in other parts of the country, some of them center around dams or coal-fired electrical generation. So there are electrical co-ops that seek to empower a region, maybe in many cases encompassing several towns and maybe a city. So those are typically called economic development cooperatives, but generally they are around electrical power. So you could think of ULU in that vein, is that our economic development cooperative, instead of generating electricity to empower towns, cities, and communities and households and farms. Its purpose is to empower our communities locally and to connect those communities. I've gotten strung out and I've forgotten the question. Just trying to think.
Well,
Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, I was just asking you in terms of the formation of ULU and the power that's derived from our unique formation, because we're not the typical co-op. Mm-hmm.
Right. So ULU is what is, if you look up, Google types of co-ops, and you'll find several types, but you'll also find a type that's an amalgamation or mixture of all of the other types, and that's what ULU is. ULU is a multi-stakeholder co-op. When we say multi-stakeholder, a church can be a stakeholder. A business already existing, corporate, entrepreneurial business can be a stakeholder. An association can be a stakeholder. A fraternity or sorority can be a stakeholder. Individuals can be a stakeholder. Married couples can be a stakeholder. Workers can be a stakeholder. Individuals, again, can be a stakeholder. So it's a multi-stakeholder business enterprise, a co-op, and it's also called a hybrid. Those two words are used to define what ULU is. But even beyond that, ULU is a for-profit co-op. Most of the co-ops that we run into are non-profit, or if they are for-profit, they do so in a very, very limited way. So we are a for-profit cooperative, and we're a hybrid. And we became a co-op not because we registered in the state of Georgia under the co-op statutes. We actually registered as a business under the LLC statutes, but we are just as much a co-op in that our operating agreement is structured such that we operationally are a cooperative. A democratic process, one member, one vote with elected leadership. And so we're very different because our mission is different. Our mission is to harness the resources, not from a river, not from a nuclear power generator, not from solar panels, not from wind turbines, but from the flow of dollars, from the flow of economic wealth or potential wealth, aligned with the skills, talents, genius, and energy of our people to produce empowerment, social empowerment for our group. So our mission is very different. And so, as you indicated earlier, when we first came together, we had no idea that it would be this big in scope. But as we began to be honest with ourselves, and we had to look each other in the eyes and admit that we didn't want to build a structure and build a process that if it was ultimately successful, we still would be subservient to other forces around us. We felt that we had the obligation to build a process that, if it was successful, would liberate us, would free us from domination and exploitation. So it had to be big. So we are a multi-stakeholder hybrid co-op with a clear mission or purpose of empowering us as African people, as descendants of Mother Africa. Maybe I answered it, maybe
Excellent
I didn't.
Point. No, okay. you definitely answered it. Yeah, you definitely answered it. And in the 15 minutes that we have remaining, for this first hour, again, there are a few I would say, at least 3 more critical points that we need to hit on in order to really fully give, prospective members, a clear picture on what it is, the magnitude, the gravity, a sense of scope and scale in terms of ULU. So I'll ask you another question. Again, as we continue to build out this process, again, ULU has at its premise 1 member, one vote with elected leadership. Give us, from a cultural standpoint, why is that important? Because, again, ULU functions in some ways like a traditional business, but in other ways, there's also a focus on the unique perspective of our culture in the marrying of the two. Yes, can you give us some detail on how that kind of impacts the organization and the membership as well?
Yeah, we actually, and the name, the term sustainability is used fairly often in our community, and we wanted to build a structure that was sustainable, and we know that if you build a structure around personalities or around cliques, that's not sustainable. We wanted a process where people and members participated in an ongoing process of electing leadership, and would place us in a situation to be sustainable into the future. What was the second part of that question?
Yeah, the follow-up to that was the meshing of, traditional business practice and also ULU culture. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. One of the slides on our website shows children sitting in a circle with their feet together, and so it represents the village and the power of the village, and genius and wisdom being communal. Yes, there are individuals who are wise and who depart knowledge, but in most of the cultures around the earth that are near the center of the earth, aboriginal cultures that do not come from the extremes of the North and South Pole, there is more of a communal group emphasis, and where people share in a whole lot of aspects of community, in caring for the youth or children, and caring for the elder, and caring for the sick, and caring for the needy. In other words, most of these cultures come from a worldview of abundance as opposed to the worldview of the poles that come from a worldview of scarcity. And so they derive different ways of looking at life or worldview. And so we wanted ULU to reflect our traditional culture and the cultures of people who have been similarly situated as we have, wherever they may find themselves on the planet. And so we value collective wisdom. We don't think DJ can ever know enough to save us, or Hakima, or any of us. We believe that truth knows itself, and that's a collective process. And it would take me a year to explain what I just said, the meaning of it, but maybe it sounded good, so I said it. But ultimately, for brothers and sisters who go to our website and request additional information, you'll see a 4-page document on Ulu values and ethics. And so we took not only pain to come up with legal structures and administrative structures and process manuals, but we also took time and patience to identify and put in writing what we thought the compelling aspects of our culture that needed to be a part of the DNA of Ulu. I'm not sure that meets what it is that you're looking for, but and you may want to expound on that as well.
Well, you definitely hit on the very point that I was going to make, but I would say the follow-up to that is, in terms of Ulu in process, what is our short-term goal, so to speak, as we continue to build and expand our process? Give folks who may be listening for the first time a sense of where we are in our build-out process, and what is the short-term goal for the organization?
Well, the projects that are in front of us now is continue to build and perfect the platform, the database, the process, the accounting, bookkeeping, management, all the skills and the logistics of how do you manage and control a large institution. Of course, bringing new brothers and sisters on as members and partners with us in this experiment. Well, I should say it's gone past an experiment. It's begun to manifest itself. We're currently we have in excess of 400 partners throughout this country, and in no less than 8 countries outside of the U.S. And when I say partners, again, this is a limited liability company. Anytime a person or an institution becomes a member is a partner in a business operation. So it's not like you're joining a club. You're joining a business formation, and you join it to add what it is that you bring with you to the overall success of the business. And, of course, the business success is to empower our community. There's several projects in terms of business that we're working on. Our flagship business project, is what we call the Us Lifting Us Marketing Exchange. This is a large edifice on the scale of 150,000 square feet. It's going to take us a little while to garner the resources and the expertise to tackle that one. This is a space where it would be divided into departments, farmers market, later on a grocery store or thereof, a large consignment component, weekly auctions, commercial kitchens, commercial canneries, commercial coffee roasting, coffee shop, and networking lounges, a movie theater / event hall, several entertainment or event spaces, office space for rent. But the majority of the space would be taken up by specialty stores, booths, kiosks, tables, top space, floor space that we would rent out and use as income generating. But this would be a mixed use edifice. Again, we're talking about a space the size of a Home Depot, a Lowe's, or Standard Walmart. We're talking about a big edifice. And in some communities, there is not that kind of a space available. In some communities, there are. But certainly, we will have the capacity to build them later on. And and so this would be a mixed-use facility. Commerce, entertainment, education. We would do strategic bulk buying for high-use, price-competitive items, a credit union, barter and trade network. So that's our major focus in terms of a business model that would distinguish ULU from everything else that you could think of in terms of a business model that you've seen. The other thing is we currently have taken one of the elements of the bigger project and isolated it, and we're currently doing our due diligence on building the first and then a chain of coffee houses called Cafe Ulu. And also, unexpectedly, some of our members have come together as a distinct group inside of Ulu, and because of their skill set as engineers, they're looking to produce technology products in the energy backup supply using solar and batteries to produce products for the open market. But they have the capacity to create other products as well. So those are the three areas that we're looking at now, currently, and developing resources and energy and expertise around them. But as a hybrid, as a multi-stakeholder enterprise, we are not adverse to looking at any opportunity to turn a already existing business into a co-op or an idea for starting a new co-op. So as we continue to grow, even though we may, in the phase for the coming few years, we may end up being known for a series of coffee houses, we're still keeping our eyes open for any opportunity to build a business in any sector that meets, that satisfies a need of our community, creates jobs, but also gives us a chance to acquire real estate as well. Because real estate acquisition, we don't often talk about it, but that's a part of our portfolio as well. So that's kind of where we are. I know we don't have much time, but I do want to encourage anyone who's listening and who wants to take a closer look and who maybe want to take a look from the inside. And what I mean by that, if everything lines up for you in terms of your cursory initial evaluation, but you really want to get involved and maybe even work on a committee or look at it from the other side, membership in ULU, partnership in ULU is only $50 per year. Obviously, all of us contributing $50 will not make the grade because we need more than that. But as a member, members have the opportunity to qualify for profit sharing, and they do that by acquiring ownership units in the company. And those units are in $1,000 increments, and even there is the activity on a good part of our members. They do that incrementally. Some of them do it, if they get an extra $5, they put it into their equity account. They get an extra $200, and some of our members do the same amount monthly to build it up, and others just put in $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, whatever they decide to do. But I would encourage brothers and sisters to seriously take a look at and make a decision to become a member. If you want to explore that, you can do so by clicking join on our website, and you'll see the options to fill out an application online or to print out an application and send it through the mail. And if you fill out your application online, you have the option of paying online or sending a money order or a personal check through the mail. It's up to you, your preference. And there is a good deal of information on our website. I just encourage brothers and sisters to really explore. But to join is a tab on our menu. Also, there's a tab on our menu that says member/owners. You can see a current listing, fairly up to date, of our current partner membership list. There's also a tab on that same menu line to see brothers and sisters globally that have endorsed ULU. These tend to be brothers and sisters that have national and international name recognition, but who agree to our 10-point appeal and plan that we're going to cover more in detail in the second hour. Our website, of course, is usliftingus.com. Again, usliftingus.com. Email info@usliftingus.com, and our phone number is 404-592-2780. 404-592-2780. What critically have we missed, Brother DJ?
No, we got everything in. We got everything in with about.
But I want to squeeze. I want to squeeze one more little thing in. I want to charge.
Go ahead.
I want to charge every brother and sister who is listening, wherever you are in the world. I want to say that you have a responsibility to do your due diligence, do your study, do your analysis. If you find ULU fraudulent, if you find it void of meaning, then you probably have the responsibility to share that. And maybe you would just walk away. And maybe you don't judge it either way, and you just end up neutral. But I suspect that if you're here, you're looking for something that could be a game changer for our people. And I challenge you to get out of the bleachers, out of the spectator mode, and come onto the playing field and join ULU and help us build. Every T has not been crossed. Every I has not been dotted. We're still continuing to build. And we're growing outward as we are growing inward. So in a practical sense, other than joining ULU, we invite you to come back to this call next week, but invite someone to come with you so that you expand the exposure. And so I humbly appeal to everyone on the call to accept as a task to bring someone back with you next week. A lot of times there's a saying, if you take life casually, you can become a casualty. And generally that's what you do. You become a casualty. We don't want you to take ULU lightly. And we want to encourage you, to challenge you, to put on your list of things to do, to come back here next week with 1, 2, or 3 people that you've invited onto the call with you. That would be what I would charge the family to take responsibility for, Brother DJ.
And thank you so much for the first hour, Baba Hekima. You brought a wealth of information. And again, we know the people were not only informed, but also inspired to take action tonight to become a member of Us Lifting Us Economic Development Cooperative. Thank you for a solid discussion around ULU, Baba Hekima. Thank you so much. We're going to take a break at this time, family. Yes, sir. And when we come back on the other side, we'll be joined by Sister Nana and co-hosted by myself. We're working double duty tonight, and it's all good. So we'll go ahead and take a short break, family, and when we come back on the other side, we'll begin our discussion around the 10-point appeal and plan for the new black economy. Stay tuned. All right, family, we're back. We're back on the other side, and like I said, it's a short break. And so at this time, we're joined by myself along with Sister Nanana. Greetings, Sister Nanana. How you doing this evening?
I am doing quite well, Brother DJ, doing quite well. How about yourself?
Oh, all is well. Just coming off of that solid first hour with Baba Hekima and looking forward to a lively and educational discussion with you as well. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yes, I am pleased and happy to be here, and really enjoyed the first hour. There was a lot of good information there. I especially have taken to heart what Baba Hekima said when he described Ulu as being a hybrid, sort of like a co-op on steroids. I'm going to remember that one. I think that's a great description.
Yes. Exactly.
For sure. Okay.
Yes. And so, again, family, we're back on the other side, and Sister Nanana is going to take the time to walk us through our 10-point appeal and plan for the new black economy, and we'll create a lively and informative discussion around that point. Take it away, Sister Nanana.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brother DJ. And I am starting out by saying welcome, and giving thanks to all of the folks out there in the listening audience who are with us this evening. We certainly appreciate having you, and we encourage your participation for sure. We encourage that participation. And this is the time where we provide what we have developed as training and education for those who are Ulu members, as well as for those who are considering becoming members of Ulu. So we encourage you not only to listen intently, but also to be prepared with pencil and paper to take down notes, because what you're going to be hearing is you're going to be hearing about actual solutions to this economic situation that we find ourselves in as people of Black African descent. You're going to be hearing about actual concrete plans that are moving forward to bring into reality a new economic paradigm and a new economic reality. So we ask you to please not be shy, and if you have questions or comments that you would like to make, to press 1 on your dial, and that way we'll know that you're in queue. And for those of you who have not dialed in, who may be listening through other means, the number to dial into is 319-527-202, 319-527-6202, and then press 1, number 1 on your keypad, so that we will know that you have a question or a comment to make. The basis for our education and training segment that we do is the 10-point plan and appeal. And for those who are not familiar with that, you can find the 10-point plan and appeal on the Ulu website, usliftingus.com, usliftingus.com. The first thing that comes up when you put that into your address bar is that you will see the 10-point plan and appeal. This is the basis and the foundation for everything that we do in Ulu. And that is why we continue to review these 10 points over and over again, because they are absolutely vital for us to have an understanding around them and to know how it relates to the foundation and the success of ULU. So I'll go ahead and I'll start by reading the 10-point plan and appeal. And this evening we're going to be focusing on point number 4. Point number 4 is going to be the focus of our discussion, but I will start from the beginning with our 10-point plan and appeal. Current events and the general unrest of the times call for radical change. The following points provide practical and necessary steps for a new and positive existence for us today and for future generations. Point 1, as Black people, we take full responsibility for the economic destiny of our communities and nations. Point 2, Black persons and Black institutions, especially the Black church, join together as members in a large-scale, cooperatively owned business enterprise to pool our resources. This point 3, this cooperatively owned business enterprise is reflective of our unique culture and interest in the world. Point 4, the governance and legal form of the cooperative accommodate democratic principles, one member, one vote, with elected leadership. Point 5, only members of the cooperative and not the public have the opportunity to secure ownership units, that is, equity, in the business enterprise, with the potential to amass billions of dollars for community development. Point 6, the cooperative focuses on opening and operating businesses in local communities that, 1, provide needed goods and services, 2, create new jobs, 3, stimulate additional business activity, and 4, yield a fair profit. Number 7, the cooperative is driven to duplicate and expand into hundreds and eventually thousands of businesses, all owned and controlled by the collective. Point 8, the net profits from overall cooperative success are used to, 1, reinvest, 2, for the distribution of grants and endowments, and 3, direct returns or dividends to members/owners of the cooperative. Point 9, the large-scale cooperatively owned, that is, group-owned, business enterprise functions as a catalyst and central element in building and sustaining the new Black economy, one that gives power to our people. Point 10, Us Lifting Us Economic Development Cooperative, LLC, serves as the aforementioned model. Special note, these 10 points form the basis for Black economic empowerment. The security and welfare of our people starts with our determination to control the economics of our communities and nations. Black people and Black people alone hold the key to the gateway leading to their freedom. This statement is from the Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey, 1923. And that is the 10-point plan and appeal. And this evening we're going to be focusing in on point number 4, which is the governance and legal form of the cooperative accommodate democratic principles, one member, one vote with elected leadership. So, Brother DJ, I'm going to start out by asking you, this point number 4 sounds like a pretty powerful point to me, that it's a simple statement, but that it contains an awful lot. And so I'm asking you if you could go into some explanation for us around why point 4 is as powerful as it is. What is there about it that gives it such power and such strength? Could you speak to that, please?
Yes, I certainly will, and thank you for the question. In terms of the ULU 10-point appeal and plan, it's at point number 4 where the process of ULU begins to kind of come into view, right? It is at point number 4 where, prospective ULU members and the general public who may just, come across the 10 points as a result of going to our website or some promotional material can really begin to understand the process in the legal formation of ULU and how built into the process is a automatic respect for all of our members, right? It's an automatic level of respect and value for us as members, regardless of whether we are board members or not. Why? Because it's at this particular point, again, that the process says one member, one vote with elected leadership. And the reason why that is so important is that when you're building out an economic formation like ULU that has the ability to attract hundreds of thousands and eventually millions of people, oftentimes people come into this particular process or economic formation from a variety of different socioeconomic, religious, cultural, political perspectives, And so this is a way of getting everyone on the same page through process and not allowing one member or one small group of members the ability to, as I say all the time, commandeer the organization and to take it away from its original goals and intent. And so it reflects, again, the profound level of respect that we have for our process, for our members, and the overall vision of ULU that we will say, again, irregardless of how many cooperative units an individual member may own, you only have one vote. And this ensures that all of us are on the same level playing field relative to power. Now, that obviously means that if Sister Nanana has 10 units and Brother DJ has 1, Sister Nanana will be in a position to get 10 times the level of return. But in terms of power, which is essentially what point number 4 is stressing, we are equal in that we both have one vote. And then the other part of it is, with elected leadership, is that the members, the general body, has the ability and the right to elect the leadership that governs the day-to-day of ULU. That is extremely important within, again, a process like this, because we won't always be at 400 members. Eventually we'll be at 4,000, 400,000, on into 4 million. And so this is a way for us to stay true and transparent to our membership and allowing the members to decide who represents not only ULU, but the best interest of all of our collective members. So I'll go ahead and stop right there, just in case you have some other points that you want to expand and expound on, or, ask another question as well.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your explanation around point 4. I especially like the terminology that you use when you refer to point 4 as being a pivot point, that this is kind of the crux of something very vital here, whereby each and every member is established as having equal power. And I also like the distinction that you make in terms of the power is in the vote. You know, you gave the example that perhaps one member may own more shares than another member, and so naturally as a result of that, they will be getting more dividends than another member. But when it comes to voting in terms of how the co-op is ran and other key aspects of what goes on in the co-op, they have no more power than every other member in the co-op, and I really appreciate the detail that you put around that. It makes perfect sense to me that that is a good representation of power, definitely, for sure. I'd like to delve a little bit deeper into this. You know, we're looking at the actual structure of ULU, and ULU is an LLC. Can you speak to, Brother DJ, why was LLC selected or identified as the way that ULU should be structured? What are some of the benefits around that? Can you address that, please?
Yes, I certainly can. And again, thank you for that question. For those who may not be familiar with this form of incorporation, LLC is short for Limited Liability Company, and it's the current structure of Uplifting Us Economic Development Cooperative. And that particular, or this particular incorporation structure was chosen because it is with this particular structure that it gives us number one, the global scale and reach that is a part of the original intent for ULU. We knew when we first sat down at the table and began to construct this particular model, that in order for us to really make a global impact, we needed to be able to reach out to the global family and have them actually become members. And so when we researched the levels of incorporation and the different types of incorporation, it was with the LLC, the Limited Liability Company, that we could provide the global reach to Africans all throughout the world. And so with that being said, family, it doesn't matter if you're in South and Central America, on the continent, in Europe, or wherever on the planet you may be. If you are a person of Black African descent, you can be a member of Uplifting Us Economic Development Cooperative. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, because of this level of incorporation or this particular business structure. Also, dealing with potentially and eventually billions of dollars in economic resources. This particular structure also allowed us to have, again, that global scale and reach. But then one of the other things that was maybe even more important than all of that was the fact that ULU now, as a for-profit limited liability company, we would be able to decide, based on our needs, who we allowed into the economic formation. And so we are very clear in our operating agreement who all are eligible. If you're not a person of Black African descent, then you're not even eligible for membership. And the only way we could ensure that was, again, through the for-profit limited liability company incorporation. So that's why, again, to answer your question, the LLC designation was chosen.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and I think that's absolutely vital for us to clearly understand that the structure of ULU is designed in such a way to not only ensure success, but to ensure that the benefits that are bound to flow from this global organization and this structure, that these benefits are benefits that people of Black African descent will be able to take advantage of and will be taking advantage of for generations forthcoming. So that's definitely an important piece. And as we talk about people of Black African descent, that triggers another thought with me, going back to the structure of ULU and the democratic principles that it's based on. Would you shed some light, Brother DJ, on what is the connection between the structure of ULU and the culture, the indigenous African culture that promoted cooperative economics? You know, what are the things there that are similar and that we need to be aware of that support our culture in those democratic principles and how ULU is structured?
Yes, and again, thank you for that question. I'll start off with a quote by Sister Shanieri Norman, one of our board members, who says all the time, "Many hands make light work. Many hands make light work." And this is exactly why the democratic process was chosen. Why? Because we have a direct, we impact it directly in terms of the process and deciding who represents us and for whatever length of time that representation is in place. Why? Because none of us individually, like Baba Hakima said in the first hour, have all the answers. It's only when we begin to put our unique skills, talents, ability, and thinking in a collective process where we come up with the most robust, profound solutions to all of our problems. And that's, at the end of the day, what ULU is reflective of. ULU is reflective of a collective process, not only a process, but a collective thought process, where we don't all think the same thoughts, but we're all thinking, you see? And that is what makes this particular process extraordinary, and so powerful in its, not only its intent, but its clear mission, goals, and objectives, that we say unequivocally and unapologetically that we are here to change the power dynamic economically for all Africans on the planet. And you can't get to that point. You can't get to that level of clarity without some clear thinking and some serious thinking taking place from a collective standpoint. Because, again, this is much bigger than any individual board member or the board itself. This is representative of a collective mindset that says, hey, we are going to put forth the time, the energy, the resources, skills, talents, and abilities to change the paradigm to create a new reality for African people on planet Earth. And so the democratic process that allows us to really buy into this whole thing is the cornerstone for that to take place. Why? Because there's no one board member who is guaranteed a seat at the table year after year after year. We have to prove to the membership that we are worthy of sitting in these seats if we decide. And at any time when our cycle is up, so to speak, we can step down and someone else has an opportunity to step up and fill those shoes and take the business formation to the next level. So again, it's reflective of a collective process that is fully democratic in every way.
Wow, You said a lot there that is really really quite impactful, particularly when you talked about all of us thinking at the same time, even though we don't have the same thoughts. The important thing is that we are thinking and that we are moving forward as a collective unit. And in Western culture, that's a concept that I judge is difficult to grasp. That's a concept that we have not been exposed before. So Ulu is really taking us back to our roots, and I judge is reawakening in us that part of which is naturally a significant and integral part of who we are, that we are a communal people, and it is our nature to be in a collective and a cooperative environment. So I'm going to digress just a little bit here, Brother DJ, with the next point that I'd like to focus on, but I think it kind of fits in, and that is the whole piece around ownership, and that Ulu has created and is providing an opportunity for all members to be owners. How do you see this affecting us on, a psychological perspective, emotional perspective? What is this? What's the message that's being sent to our youth? Just the whole concept around owning a business and then being able to pass on that ownership generationally. What are your thoughts and your comments around that?
Yes, and again, thank you for that question. I do want to let you know, Sister Nana, that our member spotlight guest is in queue, and so and at any time we can go ahead and get the guest involved in the conversation as well. But to quickly answer your question, ownership denotes power. Ownership denotes power, and this is why Ulu advocates for ownership. This is why we push ownership and the value and the power of ownership to our members through the owning of cooperative units and having a stake in the ownership of the various businesses within the Ulu network, right? And like you said, that ownership then allows you to pass those units and the value of those units to your to future generations of your family. You see, which is also a catalyst for power in getting away or breaking the cycle of poverty within a lot of our families and communities as well. And so we stress ownership because ownership denotes power. And it's the thing that we have to be about if we're serious about changing the current reality of powerlessness that exists with our people. I remember having a conversation with a brother a few weeks ago, and he said, well, what's the point in owning a home when you still got to pay the taxes, right? I said, well, I would much rather pay the taxes on the home, be responsible for paying the taxes, than to always be burdened with paying someone else rent, because it's a big difference. You see, because ownership at the end of the day denotes power. And it's that level of responsibility that actually will get us to the point of economic liberation. And they go hand in hand. Ownership, power, and responsibility are connected in very deep and profound ways.
I definitely appreciate what you're saying around that, particularly bringing in the piece around responsibility. As an owner, there is, I judge, definitely a a concern and a way in which you move and a way in which you look at circumstances, situations, and make decisions that denote that you identify yourself as being responsible for the moving forward and the success of the business or of the venture or whatever it is that you're involved with. Whereas if you are, in the example you gave, if you are a quote-unquote renter and you are not an owner, then there is a different mindset, I judge, a very different mindset. And so, yes, that we encourage all of those who are participating with ULU who have joined and become members. We do encourage you to become owners and to start putting forth the dollar amounts that are appropriate to purchase a unit so that you can be a full-fledged owner and so that you will be receiving benefits and dividends. And I'm just going to ask you to comment on one other thing, Brother DJ, and then we're going to go ahead and welcome our spotlight guest. Could you just briefly tell us what that looks like for ULU in terms of ownership and the purchase of the unit? Can you give us a brief description on that?
Yes, and what that looks like is when a member joins ULU, the basic or membership is $50 a year, filling out the application, and upon approval, becoming a member of the cooperative. But then, in addition to that, a member also has the opportunity to secure what is known as a member unit, and it's issued in denominations or amounts of $1,000, and there's no limit to the number of cooperative units any individual member can own. Now, these cooperative units, they encompass the value of the institution. And so as ULU begins to build out ownership of various businesses, if DJ owns one unit, which is equivalent to $1,000, DJ owns $1,000 worth of stake in that particular company. But guess what? Not just that one company or that one business. All of the businesses that ULU will eventually own and operate. And so my one investment has an opportunity just from the build out of the various businesses, has the opportunity to grow exponentially, let alone the revenue that's generated from successful operation of these businesses. You see, this is why going a step further in securing an ownership unit or a cooperative unit is so important, because that's where the biggest value is in terms of this cooperative process. To not only own the unit and have the ability to pass it on to future generations in the built-in value, but as ULU begins to expand other businesses in other industries, that member unit or cooperative unit has an opportunity to grow exponentially. You see, and so that is just one example of the power of cooperative economics, or as we tend to refer to as family-centered economics.
All right. Thank you so much for giving us that explanation. I appreciate all of the detail that you have provided for us on this point 4. And let's move ahead now and open the line for our members spotlight. We do a members spotlight on this second hour of our call on Thursday night to give opportunity for ULU members to take part in our training and education piece, so that people can get to know their fellow ULU members and see that there are members who cut across all different categories and have all a variety of talents. And so at this time, we would like to welcome Chief Olatan, who is our Member Spotlight guest. Are you on the line with us, Chief Olatan?
Yes, we are. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you quite well, and I hope you can hear me well also. Yes,
indeed.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so very, very much for joining us this evening. We are pleased and honored to have you as a guest, and would like to start out, Chief Olatan, by asking you to share with the listening audience how long have you been a member of ULU, and what prompted you, what attracted you to become an ULU member? Could you share that with us, please?
I could. Thank you, and it's our pleasure being here. We've been a member of ULU for 3 years now, and we took a brief period off from involvement on some levels. We of course kept our membership up, and it has become clear that the founding principles of ULU and what we can accomplish in the world is something that we will and are now more active in becoming in those ways. And it's interesting that point 4 came up tonight, because I was looking at the African Cultural Restoration Plan, which we helped to popularize from a point of view of African centricity. And that economic programs talks about starting your own business, forming business associations, because you can pass that on to your children. They cannot inherit a job. They can inherit something that you own, and I'm glad we are talking about that point. What and how I became interested, because of course we travel around and we try and make ourselves appraised of what's going on in the cyber world, and sometimes our physical world gets in the way of that. But it is something that we must do as a people, and we have to do that thing from a perspective of being Black African and what that means and where we are in the world and what we're going to do to improve that situation. I also am part of the Appeal program, which is another organization that's talking some of the same things, us owning our own businesses, us becoming economically independent. You know, of course, that's going to need to start from a cultural, philosophical worldview as to who we are as Black Africans in the world. And Appeal's principle of forming the credit union, as it were, is another aspect of that. And I became interested about the same time as with ULU. Thank you.
I see. So it sounds to me that you saw a connection between ULU and other interests and other initiatives that you were also involved in. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed. And
you know,
we here at we are one of the chiefs in the Oyotunji African Village in Beaufort County, South Carolina. The first and only, as far as we know, traditional African community, an intentional community that talks about some of the same founding concepts and principles of ULU and the like, starting from a aspect or perspective where we are the center of attention, not another group or race of people, but our own interests.
Wonderful. And that is absolutely very vital and important. And I like the way you phrase that, where we are the center of attention and not another group. And so I didn't mean to interrupt you, Chief Olatan, but I just wanted to comment on that and to ask you if you could tell us more about your background. I understand that you're an author, as well as being a chief there, as you mentioned. So can you speak to us about some of your background and your history in the Yoruba spiritual system and some of the work that you do?
Yes, indeed, and thank you. We have been culturally involved since the mid-'70s. We have since become next year will be 40 years for us being at Oyotunji African Village, and the concepts and the principles of the audacity of our founding fathers and mothers to determine that we must do our own thing. Some people may have seen that as radical or insane, or at least, blasphemy, to think that an African spiritual system is better for us than some of the other suggestions that we have been led to in the past. And for our founding father to have that audacity and commit to the ideal that since we're the parental people on the planet, since Denkanesh, the first humanoid being on the planet, an African female. And we have to go from that perspective and realize that who and what we are and what we must do for ourselves, our children, our ancestors is vitally important. Otherwise, we'll stay in the same situation that we've been in for far too long. Mm-hmm. So that is the perspective we have on that. But we came to the African Village in 1978, August 6th, as a matter of fact, and realized that after I was working on my PhD in communications at the State University of New York in Buffalo. At the time we came to Oyotunji African Village, and Dr. Malefi Asante, who is now the head of the African department at Temple, or at least was, at that time was head of the communication department in New York. And we came to the village, and he told us that we should come and finish our PhD and so forth and so on. But our ancestors had a different mission for us to promote and be involved in the realization that we must realize our Africanity to be successful, to be liberated, to be independent. If that's not the first mindset, we're gonna continue to have problems in that regard.
So it does sound to me, from what you're sharing with us, Chief Olatan, that there are definitely connections between African spiritual systems and the concepts of co-op economics. That there are pieces that definitely fit together there. Am I hearing that correctly in what you're saying?
Indeed, it's a direct line from where we were, quote unquote, in the beginning, and where we are now, and what the problem was and is that we believe that another person's economic, psychological, philosophical, social political system was better for us than what we already had when it was taken away from us or attempted to be taken away from us. So we became, we went through the Stockholm Syndrome, where we began to take on the interests of our captors. When the Cultural War started in the 15th century and we were taken away from our homes, our culture, all of those things, that's important. And that is why they have been so intent on keeping us from realizing that. So now I think our people are beginning to realize that we got to do for ourselves and not depend on someone else to do it. And you do that by starting economic and social and political and spiritual systems for your benefit. Why would someone who captured you and put you into a bondage, into prisoner of war camps, then oppressed you and built into their system from before the beginning that we are less than human? And we know that's not true. So let's stop acting like we believe it and be who we are. We've tried everything else. Let's try being ourselves. And these systems, economic, political, social institutions, have to be based in what is benefit for us, Black Africans. And if we don't, we'll continue to have the same problems.
And so I hear you saying that for us to truly reclaim ourselves and to return to being our true selves, that we have to reclaim ourselves in every aspect and in every way. And so our spiritual traditions are part of that reclaiming, that reclamation, and our economic systems, our systems of how we live in community together, our systems of how we run our families, how we relate to each other, all of those systems we must reclaim and practice all of that in that traditional sense in order for us to really be out of bondage. And I hope I'm not kind of putting words in front of you, but that's what I heard you saying. And so I do appreciate all of that, and I definitely appreciate seeing that connection between the spiritual systems and the economic systems, that this is part of how we have taken care of ourselves from the beginning of time. And you made a very key statement when you said, why would someone who has enslaved you, why would they, what would be to their benefit of assisting you to rise economically or in any other way? There is no benefit to them, and we have to face that realization and then deal with it from there. So I really appreciate your comments, Chief Olatan, and I would ask you one last thing because we're going to be winding down pretty soon, and that is if you were to share anything with the listening audience, those individuals who at this point may be considering becoming members of ULU but have not taken that step yet, if you had something that you could share with them, what would that be at this point?
Indeed. Thank you very much for that. It's what we like to call a future vision. And in that, of course, it is based on the concept or the practice of there are certain African. Let's be clear. After all we've gone through as a people, and as many advances as we have made under that oppression systematically, under incarceration as a lifetime in bondage, I try and stay away from slavery. The cultural wars started, as we said, in the 15th century when the Portuguese came into Africa and began to take Africans away. And when that began, that was a cultural war because our civilizations, which had flourished for thousands of years, invention of a lot of the things that we're using today and not realizing it, came from our ancestors. And up to now, then what do we do? Where do we go from here? And this future vision is about what it might take to do that. And it is a prepared piece, but I wanted to get as much of it in as I can. That this future vision is that we as a community, as a people, be the source of the highest levels of education, knowledge, and practice in service to the diverse communities of our people, wherever we are in the world. In order for this vision to become a reality, the elders and leaders in our various communities would come together, communicate, organize, strategize, and support one another when and where possible. Leaders would listen and learn, aspire to inspire, guide, lead, lift up, and uplift those who may need their help or assistance. Elders would strive to be a beacon and shining example of our highest ideals, and each of us would continue to learn, teach, share knowledge, wisdom, and understanding with each other for the benefit of one another. Our families and communities. Some of us may have much to learn. Many of us have something to teach, and each of us has something valuable to share. The pillars of our communities would not abuse their influence or position, take advantage of the weak, or use their position for their benefit alone. Elders and community leaders would lead by example, not just thoughts or words. Thoughts and words can be and are often cheap because either without action is just an intellectual or verbal exercise. Ultimately, it is our actions that will determine our reality and our future. For it is our thoughts, words, and actions combined that are the manifestations of our character. Adults would be good role models for those who watch and imitate them. Children and young people surely know that humans are not perfect. The natural world informs us that no one, no thing is perfect. Not adults, not their peers, and not themselves. However, we can and must work together to make the quality of life for our families and communities better for all. We must learn how to not harm or injure others with words or deeds, individually or collective, for whatever reason, injury, pain, or suffering we have endured or inflicted. To paraphrase President Nelson Mandela, Ibada Tarun, to hold on to grudges and resentments is like taking poison and think that you are killing your enemy. We must love, nurture, teach, and protect the children because they truly are our future. We must love them enough to give them structure, guidance, and discipline. We must teach them that life is a precious gift and must be cherished and used wisely. Teach them that knowledge is one of the few things that can't ever be taken from you. Teach them that everything that glitters is not gold, and the only constant in life is change. We must nurture them and make sure they know that we know they are the world's most exquisite gift. We must sometimes protect them from us, sometimes protect them from one another, and sometimes we must protect them from themselves. We all working together ensures our success. We must remember we are all students, teachers, and leaders, wherever and in whatever position, condition, or situation we find ourselves in today. We are at a crossroads. Choose yours. We choose the children. How about you? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chief Olatan. We appreciate those words for future visions and definitely see the application of that. And we so appreciate having you in the member spotlight tonight. And I think we've only got about 3 minutes left here. So, Brother DJ, if you're still there, I'll ask you if you have any closing words, and we're ready to sign off with another great second-hour session for the Ulu Radio Talk Show. Are you still there, Brother DJ?
Yes, I'm still here, and I would say quickly, as because we've got about 45 seconds left, I want to thank everyone who, hosted the call, our member spotlight. Thank you, Chief, for joining us and giving us that excellent information. You can find out more about Us Lifting Us Economic Development Cooperative by going to our website, usliftingus.com, usliftingus.com. We can't do it without you, and we wouldn't even want to. We'll talk to you again next week, family. Thank you, Sister Nana, and we'll be black with you next week, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace, family.